Imagine a world without a single, simple tool that unlocked the planet. A world where the vast blue expanses on the map were not highways, but permanent, impenetrable barriers. What would we have done? How would humanity have pushed beyond the shoreline, driven by that insatiable need to explore, to trade, to connect? The story of navigation without the compass is one of our species' greatest tests of ingenuity. You're about to witness the alternatives, the ways we would have wrestled with the planet's secrets to find our way. Look up. That is your first clue. Without a needle pointing the way, your gaze would turn skyward to the only constants we have ever known. The sun becomes your primary guide, but it's not just about following it west or east. You must learn to read its arc to understand how its path shifts with the seasons. At its zenith, it can give you a true north-south line, but only if you know the precise time and your latitude. This is not a simple task. It is a daily calculation, a constant correction, and when the sun dips below the horizon, the real test begins. Can you find the celestial anchor points? In the northern heavens, one star holds its ground while all others spin around it. Polaris, the North Star. Finding it is your paramount skill. You must identify its constellation, the Little Dipper, and use the guard stars to pinpoint its exact location. Your life, and the lives of your crew, depend on this celestial fix. But venture south of the equator, and Polaris vanishes, slipping below the horizon. There, you face a different sky. You must now locate the Southern Cross, a compact, brilliant constellation, and use its long axis to trace a line to the South Celestial Pole. This is a fainter, more challenging reference point, requiring a sharp eye and deep knowledge. This celestial navigation becomes a universal language, a skill passed down through generations of mariners who learn to sail not just by the sea, but by the stars. Now, look around you. The world itself offers signs, if you know how to read them. The ocean is not a featureless plain. It has rhythms, patterns that become your roadmaps. The prevailing winds, the trade winds, and the westerlies are not random. They are planetary engines with predictable behaviors. You would learn to recognize their feel on your skin, their direction by the swell of the waves. You would map these winds in your mind, understanding that to sail west, you might first need to drop south to catch the easterlies, and to return, you would climb north to find the westerlies. This is not a direct route, it is a dance with the atmosphere. And beneath the winds, the water itself moves in great river-like currents. These oceanic conveyor belts can carry a vessel far off course if ignored, or become a powerful ally if harnessed. You would study the drift of flotsam, the temperature of the water, the specific life forms that thrive in certain flows. This knowledge turns the seemingly chaotic ocean into a network of invisible pathways. The journey becomes a strategic game of using these natural forces, a constant negotiation with the very elements that seem to block your way. This is how we would have conquered the seas, not with a magnet, but with our minds, forever watching, forever learning from the world we inhabit. Now, let's venture beyond the celestial map and the reading of winds. You've set your course by the stars, you've caught the prevailing wind. But how do you know where you are right now in this vast, featureless blue? This is the ancient art of dead reckoning, a continuous calculation of guesswork and precision. Imagine you are the navigator. Your most critical tool is the log, a simple device thrown from the stern. It's a rope with knots tied at regular intervals. You count how many knots run through your hands in a set time measured by an hourglass. This gives you your speed, your vessel's velocity through the water. This is your first variable. You mark your starting point on the chart with unwavering confidence. From that moment, you begin to plot. You record every change of course, every shift of the sail. You note the speed for each leg of the journey, meticulously tracking the time. You draw a line, a projected path of your voyage. But the ocean is not empty. Here lies the reckoning. You must account for the invisible force of currents pushing you sideways, slowing you down, or speeding you up. You must factor in the leeway, the sideways drift of the ship itself under the pressure of the wind. Each of these is an estimate, a best guess based on experience and observation. The error is cumulative. With every passing hour, the circle of uncertainty around your estimated position grows larger. You are not drawing a single point on the map, but a blurry expanding circle of probability. You are effectively lost, but lost in a calculated way, constantly narrowing the possibilities until land is sighted. This is a relentless, nerve-wracking process. There is no confirmation, no GPS pinging a satellite. There is only the log, the hourglass, the chart, and the gnawing question. Have you calculated correctly? The margin for error is your enemy, and it grows with every league you travel. Your survival depends on the meticulousness of your records and your ability to hold a mental model of your journey against the unyielding reality of the sea. This is the essence of the voyage, a testament to human reasoning against the immense, trackless ocean. Now let's shift our perspective from the natural world to the human one. Imagine you have successfully navigated the open ocean using the stars, the waves, and the birds. You have survived the disorientation of cloud cover and the creeping uncertainty of dead reckoning. You are approaching a coastline, but this is not your home. These are unknown and potentially hostile waters. How do you find your way to a safe harbor, especially at night or in poor visibility? This is where human engineering intervenes, creating permanent, unmoving guideposts. Look toward the shore. The most powerful of these inventions is the lighthouse, a towering structure built on a prominent headland or a treacherous shoal. Its sole purpose is to warn and to guide. Its fire, amplified by mirrors or lenses, cuts through the darkness and fog, creating a fixed point of reference in a fluid world. But you must learn its language. Does it feature a steady, unwavering beam, or does it flash in a unique, coded pattern? This sequence of light and darkness is its signature, allowing you to identify it from a printed list of coastal markers. You must also note its color. A white light might indicate deep water, while a red sector could mark the dangerous edges of a reef or a sandbar. But lighthouses are not the only markers. Along intricate island-strewn coasts or upwinding rivers, a system of smaller beacons would emerge. These could be simple day marks, uniquely shaped towers, painted in distinctive colors or patterns, visible against the landscape. At night, these might be replaced with lesser lights, perhaps a lantern on a pole, guiding you through a narrow, safe channel. These are the signposts of the sea, a network of silent sentinels. Their existence transforms a chaotic, threatening coastline into a structured, readable space. They represent a collective agreement, a shared investment in safety and trade. They tell you not just where the land is, but where you are in relation to its dangers. They are a conversation between the builder and the mariner, a promise of safety etched in stone and fire, enabling commerce and connection in a world where every journey is a monumental risk. This fixed infrastructure becomes the final critical link in the chain of navigation, bringing a vessel home. So you are sailing, a speck on an infinite ocean, guided by the stars and a calculated guess of your position. But what happens when the sky vanishes? When the clouds blanket the heavens for days, and the sun and stars become a memory? This is when you must turn to the living world around you, to the biological signposts that nature provides. Look to the horizon. The birds are your first scouts. A lone seabird, like a tern or a gannet, can venture dozens of miles from land. But which species and what does their behavior tell you? The sight of a land-based bird, exhausted and resting on your rigging, signals that a coast is near. The direction of their flight at dawn, heading out to fishing grounds, or at dusk, returning to their nests, becomes a critical arrow on your mental chart. You would learn to recognize them all: the specific flight pattern of a cormorant, the distinctive silhouette of a frigate bird. Some vessels would even carry cages of such birds. In moments of uncertainty, a bird would be released. Its instinctual flight path towards land would reveal the direction to safety, a living compass pointing the way home. But the clues extend beyond the air. The color of the water changes. The deep indigo of the open ocean gives way to a greener, lighter hue as you approach the shallows of a continental shelf. The composition of the seaweed drifting by shifts. The taste of the air itself alters, carrying the scent of pine from a distant forest or the muddy smell of a great river's estuary long before any land is visible. You would become a master of these subtle signals. You would study the patterns of cloud formations, which often gather and loom over unseen islands. You would learn to interpret the shape and direction of the swells, how they refract and bend around submerged seamounts or distant land masses, creating a confused sea that speaks of something solid interrupting the ocean's flow. This is navigation by inference, a constant active dialogue with the ecosystem. It requires a deep, accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. A library of natural signs written not in books, but in the behavior of every creature and the very texture of the sea and sky. It is a skill that turns the entire environment into a map, demanding you to watch, to listen, and to interpret, leaving no clue unnoticed. Now let's project the consequences of this navigational reality onto the grandest scale, the shape of human civilization itself. Without a reliable means to cross deep oceans, the world remains a collection of isolated ecosystems. Think of the planet not as a globe, but as a series of separate walled gardens. The continents are these gardens. The cultures of the Americas develop entirely independently, their civilizations rising and falling with no knowledge of the complex societies evolving in Europe, Asia, or Africa. The potato remains confined to the Andes. Wheat and the wheel are unknown in the Americas. In the Pacific, the islands settled by incredible feats of ancient voyaging become their own isolated worlds, with no further contact to sustain or challenge their unique ways of life. This isolation is not merely cultural, it is biological. The great exchange of species, of crops, of animals, and crucially of diseases, never occurs. This lack of contact has a profound dual effect. On one hand, it protects vulnerable populations from catastrophic pandemics born from livestock in other hemispheres. There are no continent-wide plagues decimating societies that lack immunological defenses. On the other hand, it also stifles a powerful engine of progress, the collision and fusion of ideas. Gunpowder, printing, advanced mathematics, and revolutionary ship designs from China do not travel west. The philosophical and scientific traditions of Greece and the Middle East do not spread east in a continuous flow. Technological and social innovation becomes cyclical and regional, not cumulative and global. Each civilization reaches its own peaks and confronts its own limitations, solving the same problems repeatedly in isolation. The world is not a network, it is an archipelago of human experience. The vast interconnected web of trade, conflict, and exchange that reshaped our history simply does not form. The destiny of humanity is not a single intertwined story, but a collection of parallel, unconnected narratives, each unfolding in its own sequestered part of the planet, forever wondering what, if anything, lies beyond the horizon of their own garden. Now, let's descend from the global scale to the human one, to the very mindset shaped by this fragmented world. Consider your own perception of reality. In a civilization confined to its own continent, the concept of the world is profoundly different. Your map is not a depiction of the planet, but of your known universe. The edges of the map are not merely blank spaces, they are the literal end of your reality, often illustrated with symbolic warnings, the abode of monsters, the dwelling place of gods, or simply a terrifying void where the sea cascades into nothingness. This is not a metaphor. It is a geographical and psychological fact. Your sense of identity is intensely local, rooted in the land, the tribe, the kingdom, or the empire you know. The other is not a distant trading partner or a rival empire across the sea, but your immediate neighbor over the mountain or across the river. Conflict and cooperation are hyper-focused on these regional players. The great philosophical and religious systems that arise are not challenged by the existence of completely foreign, equally complex systems on other continents. Your worldview is absolute, unchallenged by external realities. There is no proof that different ways of being human even exist. This creates a unique form of confidence, but also a profound intellectual isolation. The collective human psyche is not one of global exploration, but of local mastery and mythological explanation for the unknown. The drive to build, to conquer, and to create is not diminished, but its scope is limited. The great energies of society are turned inward, leading to the construction of monumental structures, the development of intricate social hierarchies, and intense philosophical and theological debates, all within a bounded universe. The horizon is not a line to be crossed, but a permanent boundary. The human spirit adapts to this confinement, finding its infinity not in physical space, but in the depth of its own culture, the complexity of its own traditions, and the stories it tells itself about the world that ends just beyond the last familiar headland. Now consider the map itself. In a world without a universal directional tool, how do you even begin to chart the world? The maps produced would be fundamentally different. They would not be the neat north-oriented grids we know today. Instead, they would be practical, often beautiful, but highly localized documents. Imagine you are a cartographer. Your primary source is not precise surveying equipment, but the accumulated logs and spoken accounts of mariners. You would create what are known as portolan charts. These are maps drawn from a sailor's perspective, centered on the sea. The coastlines are meticulously detailed. Every bay, every headland, every river mouth is rendered with care because these are the critical landmarks for coastal piloting. But venture away from the shore and the chart offers little help. The open ocean is often a blank space, or it is filled with decorative wind roses, illustrations of ships, and sea monsters. These charts are networks of lines, called rhumb lines, radiating from central points. These are not lines of longitude or latitude, but constant bearing lines. A navigator would set a course from one port to another by aligning their vessel with one of these lines, following it as best they could using dead reckoning. The scale is often distorted, shaped by the frequency of travel and the prevailing winds, not by true geographic measurement. A frequently traveled route would be well-defined and relatively accurate. A less traveled coast might be compressed or stretched. There is no consistent north across different charts. A map might be oriented with east at the top toward the Holy Land, or it might be centered on a particular sea like the Mediterranean with directions radiating outward. The world, as depicted on these documents, is a collection of known corridors and safe passages surrounded by vast unknown voids. It is a patchwork of practical knowledge, a visual representation of where we have been, not a scientific projection of the world as it truly is. This is the cartography of the practical voyager, a tool for replication, not for discovery, preserving the known world one coastline at a time. Now imagine the ultimate test of this world's navigational limits, the deliberate voyage into the absolute unknown. These are not trading runs along familiar coasts or island-hopping passages. These are expeditions launched into the void of the open ocean with no guarantee of landfall, driven by necessity, expansion, or sheer human will. Picture the preparation. The vessel is not just stocked with food and water, but with every possible navigational aid, Multiple pilots are aboard, each a master of celestial observation and dead reckoning, their calculations constantly cross-checked. The ship carries cages of land-finding birds for release at critical moments. The route is planned around the most predictable seasonal winds and currents, a best guess based on fragmented reports and theoretical maps. The departure is a monumental gamble. Once the last known landmark disappears below the horizon, the crew enters a state of perpetual uncertainty. For weeks, they see nothing but water and sky. Their only confirmation of progress is the changing night sky, the North Star sinking lower, new southern constellations rising higher, a slow celestial proof of their latitude. But longitude remains a terrifying mystery. They know their position north to south, but east to west is a vast question mark. A storm that blows them off course for a few days could invalidate all their careful dead reckoning, placing them hundreds of miles from their estimated position. The sight of a single piece of drifting vegetation or an unusual bird species becomes a moment of intense analysis and debate. Hope and despair become tangible forces on the ship. The decision to press on or turn back is a constant calculation of dwindling supplies against fading odds. Many of these vessels simply vanish, swallowed by the ocean without a trace, their fate forever a mystery. Their journeys end not with a discovery, but with silence. Those that succeed, that eventually sight a new shoreline, achieve something monumental. They have not simply found new land, they have expanded the very boundaries of the known world, proving that the maps were wrong and that the void was not empty. They return with stories that rewrite geography, but their path remains a fragile thread, a secret held in the minds of a few survivors, incredibly difficult to replicate. This is exploration at its most raw and consequential, a high-stakes battle of wits against the planet's greatest expanse, where success rewrites history and failure is utterly erased. Now consider the legacy of this world, the long-term imprint left on human civilization by the absence of that one simple tool. The story of humanity is not one of rapid globalization, but of slow, regional consolidation. The great discoveries that connect the planet are not singular events, but a slow, faltering process spanning centuries. The outlines of the continents emerge on maps, not within a few generations of intense exploration, but piece by piece over millennia, as rare, successful voyages are slowly followed up and their findings verified. This glacial pace of discovery fundamentally alters the trajectory of knowledge and power. No single culture gains a decisive, lasting advantage from access to the resources and knowledge of the entire world. Technological development progresses along independent, parallel paths. The great scientific revolutions, those leaps in understanding that often come from the collision of different fields of thought or the observation of global phenomena, are delayed or take entirely different forms. The very concept of a universal law of nature is harder to substantiate when your observable world is limited to a single ecological and cultural zone. Trade routes remain regional, creating not a global economy, but a series of powerful, localized networks. The Silk Road might flourish as a land-based artery, but it is not superseded by faster, more capacious sea lanes. Wealth and influence are concentrated in land-based empires, not maritime republics or colonial powers. The political and cultural landscape of the planet is a tapestry of deeply rooted, inward-looking civilizations, each with its own absolute truth, largely unchallenged by the existence of distant, equally powerful counterparts. The human experience is one of deep, entrenched localism. The world is not a single interconnected system, but a collection of separate experiments in civilization, each developing its own solutions to the human condition, largely in isolation. The final profound consequence is this: the planet itself remains the final frontier, its full scale and diversity, a mystery that unfolds not in a great age of exploration, but across the entire span of human history. A puzzle solved not by a few brave generations, but by the slow, cumulative effort of hundreds.